Hey guys, it's Brad with Arborview Properties again. We're a house buying company on North Metro Atlanta. We buy houses all over the Metro Atlanta area. This is sort of a continuation. We did a three-part video about turning your house into mailbox money. And on this particular step, I want to break down the lease purchase or lease option scenario of how your house can generate monthly cash flow for you. This is sort of kind of a hybrid between renting your house out and selling it outright. So the way that the lease purchase works is essentially, you've probably heard the term like rent to own before. You definitely want to check with your attorney about this, make sure you're doing this legally and whatnot, because lease options and lease purchases in some states are not allowed or they're required to be done a certain way. So definitely check with your state. I'm going to sort of talk about Georgia a little bit here and how it works in Georgia. So basically what happens is you have two things. So you have a lease and you have an option. Okay, these are two separate documents, right? Two separate things. So the lease, everyone knows what a lease is. You rent your house for monthly rent, okay? Monthly rent, okay? And then on an option, what that is an option is a type of real estate contract where you're not necessarily buying the house today, but the seller is granting you an option to purchase that house from them sometime in the future. It can be in 6 months, it can be in 3 months, it could be in 3 years, it could be in 5 years. Whatever you want it to be, it can be. But the price that they purchase it at, you're negotiating today. So let's say that you do a 2-year option, right? Okay, so that means that, and then let's say it's for $150,000, okay? That means that today you are negotiating for the option that anytime within the next 2 years, the buyer can exercise their option to purchase the house for $150,000. So that means that in 6 months, in 1 year, or in 20 months from now, that buyer can come back and say, all right, I'm ready to buy it. I want to buy it from you for 150 grand, which you had previously negotiated that price. And for the granting of this option, there's what's called a consideration. Typically, it's a valuable consideration. Consideration could be money. It could be something else of value. It could be a car. It could be sometimes what developers do when they purchase property and they want to buy something for a development is they will buy an option on the land from the seller. They'll do, let's call it a 2-year option, and then basically they're going to put a lot of money into due diligence determining if that land is developable. So they're going to do survey work, and they're going to get plats drawn out, and they're going to do soil tests, and they're going to do erosion analysis, and they're going to do all kinds of due diligence work to prepare that land to be developed. And basically what they say is that I'll buy an option from you for, let's say, $1 million for this many acres, and if I end up not exercising my option, if I determine that I can't develop this land or it doesn't make sense, I will give you all of my due diligence work. So they'll give the plats, they'll give the soil test results, they'll give all of that paperwork and all of that due diligence work that costs them thousands of dollars to do. They will give it to the seller, and the seller can have that, because maybe sometime in the future, or even right now, there might be another developer that could develop that land for that particular price, and it makes sense to them, but for the other developer, it didn't make sense. So they're basically losing all that money on their due diligence. That can be the valuable consideration, because all those documents are valuable, but it can also be money. So in the simple case of doing a lease option or a lease purchase on your house, whoops. Sorry about that. Phone was ringing there. In the simple case of doing a lease option or a lease purchase on your house, your consideration might be, I don't know, $2,500, or let's just call it $2,500 in this case, okay? So basically, the buyer, your future buyer, will give you in cash today $2,500 cash that's non-refundable. Whoops. So that is a consideration for granting that option. You, the seller, gets $2,500 cash today to sign this contract with the buyer that says anytime in the next 2 years they can buy the house for $150,000. That doesn't mean they're buying it this month. They may buy it in 20 months from now, but that's how that works. And the beauty is this is not refundable. It's not a down payment. It's not a deposit. It's a option consideration. It's cash. It's cold hard money that if they decide that they don't want to buy it for $150,000, that money is gone. They don't get it back. Okay? So that's sort of how that works. And then from the lease standpoint, you have a separate document, and that's monthly rent. And a lot of times what you can actually do, and check with your attorney about this, maintenance and repairs can actually be passed off to the to the tenant, because they're ultimately going to buy the house. They're going to buy it. So now when it comes to major capital expenses like a air conditioning unit, or like maybe a new roof or some sort of major repair, maybe there was like storm damage to the house and you have to file an insurance claim on it, you're probably going to pay for that. That's arguable. There have been some court cases. You check with your attorney about that. Ask an attorney about that. I'm not an attorney, so I always would steer you to an attorney to ask them questions. But the lease option is 2 different documents, and you can get market rent on that, right? And they're basically going to pay you rent for that lease term, and then they can buy it anytime. The reason someone might do that is maybe they're self-employed, or maybe they can't get a mortgage right now. Maybe they have some blemishes on their credit, but they have the cash to give you. They can give you cash today, and they can make the monthly mortgage payment because they have income from their job, and they want to ultimately buy, but for some reason or another, they can't buy it right this minute. They can't qualify for a mortgage, but maybe in a year from now or 12 months from now, they can. So whenever we do these to someone, like if we're selling a house on a lease option to somebody, we will actually get that person in touch with my mortgage broker that I work with and say, hey, I need you to go ahead and qualify them and do backgrounds. They need to do an application to you and get the ball rolling on getting a mortgage. They might not be able to qualify today. Maybe they have to pay off some debt or get some things fixed on their credit, but maybe in 6 to 12 months from now, they will qualify for a mortgage. And if they do everything that my mortgage broker tells them to do and follow those rules, they can ultimately get a mortgage in, let's say, 12 months, and they can buy the house for $150,000. And a lot of times maybe you give them a little bit of a deal on it there. Maybe a year from now that house might be worth $160,000, but you're selling it to them for $150,000. So this is an option, sort of a hybrid of selling it and leasing it. It's not for everybody. It doesn't work in every situation. Consult with a real estate attorney on whether you think that this is a good idea for you. But this is another way that your house can generate mailbox money for you every single month. And your worst case scenario is that they buy the house from you, okay? And then let's say they don't buy the house from you. Well, you could turn around and just sell it again on another lease option. That's how it works. So this is how it works. And if you want to do some more research on it, there's tons of videos and stuff out on the internet. But this is just an explanation of how the lease option works. So I hope this helps. If you have a house you want to sell, reach out to us. Click on the link below. Fill out the web form, and we'd love to talk to you about it. Sometimes we'll actually do lease options from you, the seller, where you don't have to deal with the headache. We'll handle it. What we would pay you in monthly rent would probably be a little bit under market value, because what we then do is we're just going to go lease it back out to someone else we'll have a right to sublease in our contract, and we'll make a little bit of money every month on the rent, but that saves you the headache of having to deal with it. So we do that in some circumstances. It's not that common, but we do offer that option. So hope that helps. Thanks, and have a great day, guys.